Well, I actually studied industrial design at uni, and I really liked furniture design, but my favourite part of the course was more the model making aspect, basically. And I always, my whole life, just wanted to make things. And and then I was kind of sidetracked I finished uni and went out into the world and found myself working in stop motion animation, making little sets and props, and then film and television. So I did that for a number of years, and always with the model making. But unfortunately for Australia, it's a bit of a boutique cottage industry, and I just didn't want to starve to death. And I, found fame and fortune overseas for a few years, and that was amazing. There's so much more opportunity in Europe. But I came back and I didn't want to be an actor that, like an actor who only works for a few months every year and then has to work in a cafe. And so I all the time I've been learning mould making and casting just for the jobs. And I came to realise over that time that it was a very niche market, and there's hardly anyone that knows how to make moulds. And so I've been here in Sydney for 7 years nearly, and I run my own business, and mostly the work I get is artists making moulds of their sculptures and then replicating them in different materials. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but I love it. I do something different every day. And the people I meet are always really interesting, so I wouldn't change it for anything. But in terms of influences, I was very much interested in the practical effects and props in movies, like Lord of the Rings was a good one. The Weta Workshop in New Zealand, they just do absolutely stunning miniature work. They call them bigatures because they're epic miniatures, whole cityscapes, and that. But I had a lot of interest in modernist designers and architects when I was still in design land, and certainly when I'm making things for myself, I'm drawn to that sort of modernist, minimalist style. Before I start a job, I research, I look at other images of similar work, or I insist that people bring those images to me at least, and if not, photos, then drawings with dimensions, very important. And from there we can get an idea of a starting point, because in terms of mould making and casting, you have to have an idea of the final outcome, what you want to achieve before you start, because if there are various materials that things could be moulded or cast in, and some materials don't talk to each other well. They inhibit the curing, particularly with resins and silicons. You have to use the right products for the job. So it's really important to be clear about what it is that the client wants at the start, so that you don't end up at the end of it with something that they can't use. For instance, say a mould. This is a mould that I've made here. It's made of it's a silicon mould with a fiberglass jacket. So this part is silicon. This part is fiberglass. This part is silicon. And the casting that's come out is this beautiful clasped hand piece. That's cold cast in copper. But say the client didn't mention to me at the start that what they wanted to cast it in was actually chocolate, then this is wasted, because this particular silicon can't be used. It's not food safe. There's the inside of the mould. This is only good for casting resins. So, you have to know the limitations of your materials and what it is that you want to achieve with them. So I've actually found my niche, apart from the mould making, in materials testing. So emerging technologies and emerging materials are my two favourite things. And if I don't already know it and someone comes to me, then that's a good excuse to get involved in something new. So the two major groups of materials that I work with the most are resins and silicons, and there are hundreds of different varieties. Within those two groups, there's many different categories, but it all depends on the right one for the purpose. So this particular item here is what's known as a cold cast, and it's a cold cast as opposed to a hot cast, which no one says that, but what they mean is a foundry cast metal. So this is cold cast copper, and this is basically formed by impregnating clear resin with a pure copper powder, and you can do that in copper, bronze, aluminium, tin, brass, and it's a very believable finish actually, but for a significant discount in the price. So in terms of students and looking at doing things cost effectively, getting this cast in copper, real copper at a foundry would probably cost you about $5,000, but whereas this one probably costs about $600. So for a similar enough finish to sell it, I mean, as in to make it work. So yeah, I work with plasters, gypsum products, stone, real stone, as well as stone look resin. So this is what's called a marble dust cast, and it's the same kind of process as doing the cold cast, but instead of adding the alloy into it, it has real marble dust in it. So it looks like marble. It feels like marble. It's cold. This is cold like real metal is, but for a fraction of the cost. So there's definitely something to consider as a student, that how you can do things inexpensively. I also work with polyurethanes, epoxies. What else? I can't think. Polyester, all the sticky stuff. It's very important. PPE, personal protection. Don't sell your future down the drain. All of that stuff. I cover all of it basically. Plaster is very versatile. You can add on to it. Plaster is one of those magic products that you can, even if it's very old plaster, you can join new plaster onto it, which is rare in material land. You can use it as a surface treatment as well as a building product. You can also lay reinforcement inside it, and that can be in the form of wire or steel reinforcement, like in building sites, or something as easy as hessian or strips of material or fiberglass matting to give it extra strength. So if you found that your piece kept cracking in a thin spot, then you could pour a little bit, lay some reinforcement like a piece of chucks, there's like kitchen wipes, and then more plaster on top. That will help give it some rigidity and strength. As I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to work when it's very wet. If you can let it dry out for a week or even a few days, or even you can dry it out on a very low temperature in an oven. When I say low temperature, I mean like 50 degrees or so. That will give you a nice dry thing to sand away. And once it's dry, it's a dream to work with. Once it's wet, it's very kind of sticky. I touched on it earlier a little bit, but it's very weather dependent. So if it's cold outside and you're using cold water, it will take a lot longer to set than if it's a really hot day or a very humid day. It will also set off a lot quicker. So you can use the temperature of the water to adjust the curing, which is very, very handy. On a cold day, you can use hot water. On a hot day, you could use cold water, and it will adjust the ratios accordingly. If I can use an example of something I'm working on with a student at the moment, this man is doing a series of coral, so we've moulded some coral and cast it, and he's talking about coral bleaching and the way the reef is being destroyed, and he's representing that in by changing the colour and the opacity of resins through a series. So that he has 9 pieces, and you know, the coral is very bright and alive looking, and then over the course of this thing, the coral degrades and the colour is bleached not just to white but to completely translucent, water clear, as they call it. There's time, there's movement, and there's sequence all in one installation, and it couldn't have been done without moulding and casting. But having said that, they were very simple moulds to make, and the casting is something that you can do en masse. At repetition seems to really sell a lot of ideas. You know, you have one of something, it might not say anything much about anything, but if you have 50 of them, then suddenly it's an idea.